Hey, good morning. It's day 2 in our 8-day journey where we're looking at what I'm calling the obedience of faith. It is that manifestation that because we trust God, we take action. We do some things that He asks us to do. Often He asks us to do things that are so unusual or so impossible, let's say, from the way we would look at it, that only if we really trust Him will we take the action. So we're going to look at an Old Testament situation today where a king of the northern kingdom of Israel, Joram, he's about to go out and have a war with the king of Moab, and he asks the king of the southern kingdom, Judah, Jehoshaphat, who was a righteous king, to go with him. So these two kings, Joram of the northern kingdom and Jehoshaphat of the southern kingdom, they're going to go out, they're going to do battle with Mesha, the king of Moab. Now here's where it gets interesting, and I'm reading to you from 2 Kings chapter 3, and we'll be in 2 Kings for a couple more days. But in 2 Kings chapter 3, and I'll just read you select verses, they have a discussion about which route to take. You know, Jehoshaphat says, yes, I'll help you, Joram. And then in verse 8 he says, but by what route shall we attack? He asked. This is Jehoshaphat asking Joram. By what route shall we attack? He asked. Through the desert of Edom, he answered, he being Joram, king of the northern kingdom. So the king of Israel set out with the king of Judah and the king of Edom. After a roundabout march of 7 days, the army had no water for themselves or for their animals. So here we have a real critical situation. It was Joram who said, let's go through the desert. And they are in the desert, and now after 7 days they've used up all their water for the soldiers, enormous number of soldiers and animals, and they are in real trouble. So here's where it gets interesting. Jehoshaphat, being a godly leader, he says, well, don't you have a prophet around here? And one of the soldiers speaks up and says, yes, we do, Elisha. But Joram, the king, doesn't like Elisha, because Elisha is a real servant of God. Anyway, they call Elisha, and Elisha does give a word. Jehoshaphat wanted assurance that they could go forward under the circumstances since they were lacking water. So let me read to you. This is verse 14 of 2 Kings chapter 3. Elisha said, as surely as the Lord Almighty lives, whom I serve, if I did not have respect for the presence of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, I would not even look at you or notice you. Now that's not a real polite statement to the king of the northern kingdom where Elisha lived, but he had no respect for him in regards to what an ungodly ruler he was. He respected him as a human being, but not in the way that he led his people. So let me pick up reading a little further on. This is verse 16. So Elisha gives a word now. Elisha says, this is what the Lord says, make this valley full of ditches. Get the picture. They're in dire straits. They're running out of water. They're in a desert. And Elisha says, dig ditches, dig multiple ditches all over the valley in this dry place. All right? Let's pick up verse 17. For this is what the Lord says, you will see neither wind nor rain, yet this valley will be filled with water, and you and your cattle and your other animals will drink. Verse 18, this is an easy thing in the eyes of the Lord. He will also hand Moab over to you. So let me pick up in verse 20. The next morning, about the time for offering the sacrifice, there it was, water flowing from the direction of Edom, and the land was filled with water. So here we see this action. Imagine you're exhausted. You are literally about to dehydrate because of a lack of water. You've been in the desert for 7 days. You've drank up all your water supplies. And now God says, dig ditches in this dry place if you want to have water. You talk about a test of faith or a proof of faith or trust. This was it. God once again intervenes and He fulfills His promise. They also gained victory over Moab as well. But I just can't help but to wonder, I just can't help but to wonder if there isn't something, some act of obedience that God has made you aware of through His Word or through His people or some other way, and you know what it is, but you're hedging on it. You're not ready to take it. And God's saying, you need to take this rather, maybe it's a radical act of obedience to demonstrate your trust before God brings the blessing that He wants to bring into your life.